And forgive you for not knowing that this car exists, to be honest. It was announced rather quietly earlier this year in the summer. The driving impressions are actually embargoed as I talk to you now. I've managed to get this car really quite early, and instead of going on the global launch in somewhere lovely and warm, Malaga, I think it was hosted in last week. Instead of that, I've said, no, can I please have the car in the UK? And the UK is doing UK things. So it's grim today. It's dark, it's raining. I've got this car I had it yesterday and it's going back today. So I'm just rushing a little bit to get this video done. And to be honest, there isn't that much to get your head around. There's an S letter on the end of the badge, and we all know in cars that means it's the better one, the sportier one, I suppose. That's usually what S means, and Aston Martin has used S before. There was a Vanquish S just a few years ago. So this isn't a major new update for the DBX. There was a model year update that brought CarPlay Ultra, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. It's not running at the moment, and that's a clue as to perhaps what we'll talk about in a minute. It's not a replacement for the existing model, the DBX 707, which itself sat above the standard DBX. And then the 707 was so popular that Aston Martin stopped making the standard one. So now we've just got DBX 707. Oh. It's a quick car. We'll come back to that as well. So we've got the DBX 707 as sort of the standard car, and then we've got the DBX S, this one, as like the better one. What's different? Well, more power, obviously. Of course it's got more power. The 707 was called that because it had 707 metric horsepower, I think, just under 700 brake horsepower. Then the DBX S, a bit more power, a little over 700, I think 717 brake horsepower in an SUV. The engine is very similar to before, 4-litre twin turbocharged V8, sourced from AMG, but don't say it's a Mercedes engine. No, it's not. Lots of different parts. And what's actually new about the engine in this car is it borrows some turbo technology from the Valhalla, from Aston Martin's $1 million supercar. So more responsive turbos, more powerful turbos, more power overall, a little bit more performance. Only a little bit. It's got 15 to 20 extra horsepower, but it still weighs, well over 2 tons. In reality, even though it's got over 700 horsepower, the 0 to 60 hasn't changed. A little over 3 seconds. I actually launched this car in the dry yesterday using launch control, and it's absolutely mega. Just goes properly quick. Supercar levels of performance off the line. Aston Martin says it is a little bit quicker than the DBX 707, but only if you're accelerating from 0 to 124 miles an hour. And if you do that, it's 0.3 of a second quicker. Marginal gains. So a little bit of weight saving, like I mentioned earlier, 40 odd kilos, which, isn't to be sniffed at. How have they done that? So there's an optional, maybe standard carbon roof. There are optional magnesium wheels and a little bit of other weight saving here and there. Visually on the outside, a couple of small differences between this and the DBX 707. They include an optional front grille, which this car has. It's different. I'm not quite sold on it, if I'm honest. And the exhaust at the back. The exhaust looks a little bit different. Twin tailpipes either side, but instead of them being next to each other horizontally, they're now stacked vertically, 2 on either side. So there's a visual difference there. And it's louder. Of course it is. Of course it's a little bit louder. It's got to be. I'm just in GT mode at the moment, but if you go into sport and it gets a bit louder, and then you press the loud exhaust button, that turns red, and then it gets even louder, and it is a proper thug when you get into this mode. You get a little bit of pop and bang from the exhaust. Some people don't really like pops and bangs. It's a bit chavvy, isn't it? And on some cars I agree. On other cars I quite like it. On this car it doesn't do it all the time. It's not like a Volkswagen Audi product where it goes bop, 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 bop every single time you lift off the accelerator. You get sort of random bangs, so I suppose it's more authentic. or it's been coded to feel more authentic, I'm not quite sure. Carbon brakes are standard. They were just squeaking slightly then. Yes, carbon brakes fitted as standard, which you need because it's a 2-ton car with 700 horsepower and it can do 193 miles an hour. Inside there are a few differences as well. You might be able to see that the seats have got an S logo on them and a new herringbone pattern to the leather and the stitching, and that's replicated on the roof as well. That roof also doesn't have its roof rails anymore, so it's a little bit lighter, but it's less practical. It's also more expensive, as you would expect. I'm not sure if the price has actually been confirmed just yet. £217,000 is what I've seen most recently, which is a few thousand more than the base car. 5 to 10,000, about £10,000 I think more than the DBX 707. So it's only a small price increase really in the great scheme of things. If you're looking at it as a percentage, it would be rude to say it's just a trim level. It isn't much more than that. And obviously the price will go up significantly if you start adding on the magnesium wheels and other extras. You could probably get up to 250,000 without trying too hard. Speaking of extras, one of the optional extras fitted to this car is the Bowers & Wilkins sound system. 23 speakers, sounds really good. What I like about the new exhaust is, yeah, it's loud when you want it to be, it's properly loud, but it doesn't have to be. You can turn it right down. In fact, I'm just gonna switch back into GT, turn everything right down, and it gets really quiet. So Aston Martin's also sped up the steering a little bit. So the turning circle, it's something like half a metre smaller. Makes it a bit more manoeuvrable, which is nice when you're trying to get through town and around traffic. It is a big car, there's no getting away from the fact that it's a big car, but it doesn't feel too unwieldy. I think if you're in a multi-storey car park going up one of those spiral ramps, you might be clenching a little bit. Interesting that Aston Martin hasn't gone down the hybrid route just yet. Obviously it has with its Valkyrie and Valhalla, but they're different hypercars, supercars. Aston hasn't yet done a hybrid for efficiency, for range, and a lot of its rivals have now, especially in this space, in the big luxury performance super SUV space. You know, you've got the Cayenne from Porsche, which has got a sizable battery and an electric only range. You've even got a hybrid Lamborghini, the Lamborghini Urus SE. That's a hybrid SUV. You've got the Bentley Bentayga, but Aston hasn't done that just yet. And it's starting to look a little bit obvious. It does raise the question, doesn't it? I think if I was in the market for an Aston Martin, or I was in the market for a luxury SUV and I didn't know a great deal about what products were available, but I knew sort of what I wanted. I wanted something sportier than a Range Rover, perhaps. I think I might be a little bit surprised if Aston Martin said, no, we don't do hybrids. Anyway, I don't want to get bogged down in Aston Martin's business plans too much. I've always quite liked the DBX. I've driven a few of them now. You know, if you're going to spend 200 grand or more on an SUV, I think this is the one I would go for if I didn't want a Range Rover. You know, if I was looking for something much more expensive than a Range Rover, I think I'd go here. It looks good. It looks like an Aston Martin. You know, Porsche was criticised, almost ridiculed for seemingly putting the face of a Porsche 911 onto the first generation Cayenne. People said, what the hell are you doing? Here, I think taking those styling cues from other Aston Martins, from other members of the family that got that shared DNA, and putting them on a larger vehicle, I think it's worked really well. I think the grille, the headlights, the surfacing down the side of the car, and the rear especially, it's all Aston Martin. You can take the badges off this car and I think a lot of people would guess correctly. And it's comfortable, it smells beautiful in here. The leather, oh, chef's kiss. It's really exquisite. Lots of carbon in this one because it's the S, you know, sporty carbon, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't have that, personally. Switch gear's all very nice. I've got a couple of great big gear shift paddles here, which is always good, always a bit of fun. Touchscreen in the middle, but lots of physical controls too. So obviously the gear select sort of lever, the start button, the drive mode selector, but all of your rollers for temperature and volume and fan speed. It's good. You never really need to use the touchscreen because you've got physical controls, obviously for your gear selector, your drive mode selector, start-stop button, but also things like volume is a big roller there and there's another one on the wheel. Temperature for each side, fan speed, it's all physical, it's all tactile. You know, once you've learnt where they are, you'd never need to look down and away from the road. Then there are haptic buttons here for the seat heating and ventilation. They're okay. They don't click, but they make a beep. Of course, this car has CarPlay Ultra, Apple's new UI system, that's currently only available on new Aston Martins, which seems mad that it's just not available anywhere else yet. We did a video on it actually earlier in the year, so go and check that out. It's on this car as well. The first time I got in the car a couple of days ago, plugged my phone in, and it went through a bit of a setup process. Took a while actually, took a good few minutes to sort of download everything it needed and get set up, and then it worked. I got out the car, parked, turned it off, got back in a bit later, and it hasn't worked since. You know, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. My phone just isn't connecting with CarPlay. This car could be pre-production. It could be running pre-production software. I have to caveat with that. A little bit disappointing, but again, I haven't had this car long enough to fully understand whether it's me or the car. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's lovely. The V8's just rumbling away in the background to make it louder. Put it into sport and then turn the exhaust up. Oh, it does sound good. It's a brute in a suit, isn't it? I know that's a tired cliche, but it's a brute in a suit. It's James Bond. Oh. It's not particularly tuneful, it's just a big V8 and it's properly loud. I'd like to know if Aston is pumping a little bit through the speakers. It's not an efficient car, obviously, in traffic. You're not going to be getting much. You're going to be getting a dozen miles per gallon, maybe less. I think I saw 7 yesterday at one point. On the motorway, it gets up into the 20s. I think I saw about 24. Oh, actually, it's showing 180 and a little over half a tank, so maybe it'll do 300 and a bit. When you're in GT mode, it does like to really get up the gears. 9-speed gearbox. Automatic, obviously, with the paddles if you want them. It feels so planted as well, this car. Obviously, it's 4-wheel drive. Even with 700 horsepower in the dry yesterday, it was incredible. The amount of traction it has, unbelievable. Back to the practicality then. It's a big car, obviously. Loads of space, it's comfortable, heated, ventilated seats, good visibility. Mirrors especially, actually, these frameless mirrors are great. All the mod cons, parking sensors, cameras, blah, blah, blah. In the back, good amount of space, good boot as well. I feel a little bit like I'm showing off driving it. I always play a game when I'm in a press car. If I have to make eye contact with another driver, I wonder if I can sell it to them. Sell them the idea that it's my car. This one's right on the edge. I suppose this boils down to, am I a little bit embarrassed by whatever car I'm in? With this one, no, but I think the spec is really helping. When this car got dropped off yesterday, I was so relieved to see it's in a nice, sensible blue, and it's not, you know, lime green or bright orange or anything else outrageous. Aston once sent me a red DBX with a bright red interior. It's just a bit much. It is the sort of car where people might get out the way if you're in the outside lane behind them. It is the sort of car, regretfully, where you might not always be let out of a junction or through traffic, through parked cars. It looks a bit aggressive, but it's still an Aston. You're still James Bond doing the school run. That's what this is. It's James Bond's school run bus. Just James Bond going about his daily life. He's going to B&Q, he's going to the garden centre, he's dropping the kids off at football on a Saturday morning. So that's the drive modes. Like other Aston Martins, we've got GT, which is the default normal comfort mode, if you like. Then you rotate here and we've got Sport, makes the exhaust a bit louder, makes the suspension a bit stiffer, and it turns the start-stop system off. Sport Plus just does all that and a bit more. Get an even louder exhaust, lower, bit stiffer suspension, and the gearbox, if you leave it in automatic, it's much more keen to shift down. You can hear it's revving higher, and it dropped a third then and gave me a volley of bangs from the exhaust. As with other Aston Martins, the gearbox, it's not quite as instantly responsive as something from a Ferrari or Porsche's PDK system. It's not bad. It's really not bad, but it's perhaps The downshifts perhaps aren't quite as instant as you'd like them to be. You know, even on Ferraris 5, 6, 7 years ago, you pull that paddle and it feels like the gear is engaged even before you've taken your finger off. Whereas this, there's just that delay, you know, that moment where you've pulled it and then it changes. Oh. I think what I like is 700 horsepower sounds utterly outrageous, but it's manageable, it's okay, because it's got four-wheel drive, it's got so much traction, it's so composed. Like I was saying earlier, of all the super SUVs, this is the one that people with more skill than me say is the driver's car. It's almost the second stage of the acceleration is when it really gets going. The sort of 20 to 60 miles an hour, that bit, it's, you know, you have to really sort of, you're struggling to breathe, to be honest. It really takes your breath away. Pros and cons very quickly. Pros, it's an Aston Martin. It's cool as hell. It looks great. It sounds brilliant. It goes like stink. You could fit the kids and the dog in here. No problem at all. And a week of shopping. It's practical enough. It's really quick. It's all the money, obviously. I guess that's one of the cons. It's really expensive. CarPlay seems a bit glitchy. But again, I'll put an asterisk on that. Maybe it's not production software just yet on this car. Well, the small criticism, I suppose, is there's no pano roof. I love a pano roof, and on a day like this, it's really dark in here. I hope this isn't coming across too much in the video, but the black interior and the black roof is really dark. Oh, the fuel efficiency, is that a negative? It's just so obvious, isn't it? You know, it's an expensive car, it's expensive to run. Are there any other cons? Would you just get the normal one? Answer in the comments below. Would you go for the DBX 707, the base car, or would you go for the S? Let me know. Overall, I love it. I've always quite liked the DBX. It looked a little bit challenging at first, in the same way the Porsche Cayenne did, because it was just a bit unusual seeing a sports car company's face on an SUV, but I'm over that now. Would I have one over a Porsche? Yeah, I really like the Cayenne. It'd be between those two. I'm struggling to make my mind up right now. What would you get, the Porsche or the Aston? Let me know in the comments. We're now up to a couple of thousand subscribers, which is fantastic news. So keep liking, keep subscribing, and we'll have plenty more videos coming along very soon.